Item 1.1, roll call.
Board Captain. Board Clerk present.
Richard Cardone, present.
Carrie Fearing, present.
Carrie Burgess here, so all present. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Citizens present, please sign the attendance sheet and all the audience. Start with Earl Davis.
Regarding the current COVID outbreak, there are several teachers who have been finding out that they have students who test positive for COVID from the students themselves after they have been in physical contact with us in our classes. The only notifications anyone has received have been 2 vague letters from the district that have been sent to everybody in the district, or at least on the campus anyway. And all they say is there is a positive COVID case at the school. We received one last week, and yet another one today. When I've asked why I can't be notified in person, I'm told HIPAA and FERPA. FERPA and HIPAA do not prevent me from being told that I have a COVID student. I'm not asking for names, I'm not asking for medical history. I just want to know if a student in my class has tested positive for COVID. We already have access to medical alerts on the students through Synergy. Since we aren't being told, we can't take any additional preventative measures to keep our students and families safe. My only COVID information comes from the students themselves via an email telling me they tested positive. Not once has anybody from admin told me in person of any positive cases. We were told by Superintendent Flora that news of a positive case in our classrooms would come from admin and not from outside sources. I currently have 3 cases in my classroom. It's been a week since those affected students informed me, and yet still nothing from admin. All we received is an email stating specific students are allowed to be online. It doesn't take too much to figure out why. Per the district's protocols, any area with a positive case is to be closed off. Then after 24 hours, all surfaces are to be thoroughly cleaned and disinfected. This protocol has yet to happen. Again, 3 cases in my classroom a week ago. I have no idea about the rest of the school, as I'm not privy to that info. Which brings me right back to my main point. Being made aware of positive COVID cases in my class does not violate HIPAA or FERPA. We are simply asking that the district be more transparent in their reporting of COVID cases, like the elementary district has been, so proper safety measures can be taken, and so parents can make the best choice for their families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing that forward. Sarah?
Good evening, everyone. In 2018, Governor Ducey implemented his 20 by 2020 plan in response to the Red for Ed movement. This plan was to provide state funds to school districts to increase teacher pay by 20% by the beginning of the 2020-2021 school year. This year's 5% pay raise was to be the last installment of Governor Ducey's plan. It's a state allocation meant specifically for teachers and school staff. This past Monday, the Colorado River Education Association's executive board met with Superintendent Flora to discuss school-related concerns and the status of this final percent pay raise. Mr. Flora informed us that there wasn't any money available. The only way he felt he could give us the 5% raise would be through cutting positions. We asked you, where did the money go? When this 20 by 2020 plan was first presented, Superintendents Fry and Brookstrup gave teachers the respect of a formal meeting to go over options on how to best distribute these funds to benefit teachers. Teachers were also part of a discussion with school board members when the second installment came through. There's been no meeting to date that has involved teachers and no action thus far by the school board without this final 5% was mandated by the governor. Why is this? Why weren't teachers given the respect of the meeting to talk? And the question still remains, where did the money go? As we'll be discussing the 5% pay raise tonight, perhaps consider taking a look at the adopted expenditure budget for the current fiscal year as posted on the district page and also sent to the state. I have copies available to you if you need it. First, on the cover page at the bottom, data pertaining to the teacher pay raise is displayed as required by the 20% by the 2020 plan. Please take note of a couple things. The proposed increase for the current year is 0, not 5% like other districts across the state have already given their teachers, including our own elementary district. Also at the bottom of the cover page is the total percent increase in average teacher salary since fiscal year 18 is at 13%, not 15%. On page 1, there was an increase in line item 2400, school administration, of 13% from the previous fiscal year, at approximately $82,000. On line item 2600, operation and maintenance plan of the increase from the previous fiscal year was 22.3%, which is $465,000. When compared to the previous fiscal year, the increase in these line items is where you would expect them to be, between 1% and 2%. We asked why such a large increase for both of these areas, where the funds for the mandated pay raise is allocated for other things not approved by the state mandate. We asked that you discuss this matter thoroughly and figure out where the money went. This was a state mandated pay raise that should be given to teachers. Many of you have been on record saying you wish you could do more for teachers and that teacher retention is important to you. Denying us this money that was given to us by the governor accomplishes you this.
Thank you. Deanna Costa.
Actually, I was addressed.
Oh, okay. And that is all we have for call to public. Thank you. Item 1.5, approval of the agenda.
I make a motion we approve the agenda as presented. I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And motion carries. Item 1.6, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Burgess. So I'm going to make this as quick as possible because this was slated for last month, but we never got to it. The accreditation review is coming up. It was slated for October, but because of the challenges that the accreditation institution is dealing with COVID, they moved us back to January. We were very happy to have the extra time. I know that we've been putting a lot of time and effort into this process. In front of you, in addition to the PowerPoint, you also have all of the CAGIA performance standards and key concepts, which are specifically outlined in this presentation. It outlines the domain. They'll be looking at leadership, learning, and resource capacity. They'll be looking at key concepts and themes. If you flip through this performance standards and systems and key concepts, you'll see that they were looking to initiate actions, improve efforts, and impact positive practices. Some of the specific domains that they'll be looking at, of course, are teaching and learning, stakeholder actions, improved processes, our policy adherence, evaluation, and the support, effectiveness, feedback, and consistency that we maintain in our district. I should mention that the accreditation is important for our students to get into colleges and to secure good paying jobs. They're looking at equitable opportunities, collaboration, everything from attitudes, beliefs, skills, expectations, flexibility, career plan. And they'll be out, they'll be looking, they won't be physically coming out because of COVID, but they will be conducting a desk audit to look at things such as data-driven decision-making and self-assessment. They'll be looking at our resource capacity and professional learning opportunities, supports, mentoring, coaching, and the resources and finances that we put into place to support this endeavor. The rubric that's in front of you is probably hard to see. There's a copy of it in front of you that will help break down what they'll be looking at in terms of initiative, improvement, and impact from engagement the implementation, to seeing results, etc. Again, the engagement review schedule, they're going to come out, they're going to talk to different focus groups. The reason I think that this has great currency for all of the board members is because for those of you that have been on the board, for the 5 years ago, we went through this process. Governing board members will be interviewed as part of the process. So will I, so will the staff, so will community members, principals, and parents. Many of the focus groups have already been meeting to discuss and prepare. They have not yet been approached because the accreditation does not begin until January. Some of the reviews will be site-based. They'll be with the principals, teachers. They'll be doing random classroom observations. I'm not exactly sure. I think they're going to zoom into the classrooms. Mrs. Brown, is that correct?
They won't be doing the classroom observations, but they will be doing all of the interviews with teachers, students, support staff, teachers, everybody.
And I think we may share with them our asynchronous modalities, let them see a videotape lesson if they're interested, if they haven't crossed that off their checklist. And of course, they're going to be interviewing students as well. And again, they're looking on their rating scale, they're looking for full engagement and high quality levels of support and high quality sources of information. This, again, the level of impact aligns with the rubric as well as areas of sustainability, which are critical to our success. The engagement and implementation is, again, something they want to see. Continuous improvement in decision-making being done, using data, providing communication and feedback. Again, sustainability, certainly programs that we have in place, positive culture, and the types of questions I have here, but there are examples for you in your packet of the policies for the board, right? These are the questions that the board might hear. What policies are in place to monitor continuous improvements? What processes, for you to request information and feedback? What examples of programs in which the governing board had a role in improving? And what are some words that you would like to use to describe the institution that you serve as board members for? So everyone's interviews are going to be critical to getting a strong evaluation and a high level of accreditation. And that concludes my superintendent report. Are there any questions?
I have a question. Have we been reviewing our last accreditation and the weaknesses that we had in preparation?
Good, Darren, you want to?
Yes, we have. We've also, they have changed some of the standards. Advanced Ed is been purchased by Abm, and so they're looking more at the engagement and stuff that we're doing.
Because I know that was a weakness we had with.
Yes, where engagement was a weakness. And so we've been, the teachers last month on PD Day, they went through all the standards and the substandards and evaluated the different groups, evaluated each school on them.
Great.
And in this PD Day, they were looking for evidence to show that we're doing
More engagement.
the different standards and the engagement. And then in December, we'll be kind of finishing up. I don't have, the lead evaluator will be sending me a schedule soon, and so we'll be able to schedule everybody's interviews. The big thing now, because they can't come, is going to be the evidence and the interviews.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I found it very interesting last time to have an outsider come and see exactly, to evaluate and see, the things that we have to work on. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure that we'll have some things that we need to work on.
Yeah, like I said at the onset, we were really happy to get an extension until January because of COVID, because
Sure.
October would have been right upon us, and we had just opened on September 28th.
Sure.
And, of all years to be in our 5th year of the cycle of accreditation, we get chosen right in the middle of COVID. But I think we're ready, and I think we'll do well.
Thank you.
Anything further? Item 2.1, donations. I want to individually thank all of these that come through. Donation from Queen Carly Insurance Agency, $250 to MHS football to help with the pre and post game meals. Donation to BLET local division 383, $250 to MHS Spirit Line to help with new uniforms. A donation from Fort Mojave Professional Firefighters and local 4323, $300 MHS Spirit Line to help with new uniforms. A donation from Heidi Smith Agency, LLC, $250 to MHS Football, dealt with pre and post game meals. Donation from Valley Dental Associates, PC $100 to MHS Football to help with team meals. Tractor Homes, LLC, $350 to MHS Spirit Line to help with new uniforms. And donation from Dale Bates, $50 to River Valley Football. And lastly, donation from Coit. And I'd like to give Mr. Lettman a minute. He wanted to talk to the board about his donation there, which is greatly appreciated.
Well, it's actually not my donation. It's really a gift to the field house district from our employees. And how that came about was earlier in the year, pre-COVID, we were here for the Jody Messina concert now. And we brought all the employees down, and one of them asked, "Where's the flag?" Okay. And from that idea germinated in one of our staff meetings. And the idea came up, let's go ahead and donate an American flag to the field house. Well, it turns out there's two of them. So we donated an Arizona flag, and we apologize for the delay, but COVID shut down the flag making industry in the United States for 3 to 4 months. Just behind that, those two flags are actually pretty good size. They're 18 feet high by 12 feet wide, and they really look good and they pop. So anyway, it's our gifts to the field house. We love the field house, we love the schools here, and I have a bunch of patriots who work for me. And really, this is more from them than it is from them.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much. We really do appreciate that. And they do look good out there. And I'd encourage everybody on the way out, if you haven't seen them already, to step onto the field and look at them. They look really good. Okay. Item 3.1, approval of the consent agenda.
I'd like to pull 3.3 at the Toffino's report for discussion.
And I'd like to pull 3.3 Chartwell's and ABM report.
Okay. All right. With the exception of those, we have a motion.
I make a motion with the exception of those to pass the rest of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay.
Okay. I just have a couple questions on this report. First was, I noticed that we have 2 different coding of 517-1990-503. I'm guessing that's sponsors. Is that what that one line item is for? And then the 517-1880-503. If you could explain to me what that line item is, or what that coding is.
You're referring to
I'm referring to your, the breakdown. I guess it's just going to be your revenues.
yes, those are our 2 revenue codes.
So the 1990 is that specific to sponsorships? Because I noticed there's a trend there. Or do different line items fall within that code?
That's everything but one. Sorry, you're not mean to.
That's okay.
But we're expanding on his revenue codes. For October, we added a bunch of course codes so we can break it out in more detail.
Okay.
So you guys will be able to see sponsorship, vending. Those are just straight out of the USFR that we use the codes. So we put course codes so we can expand more detail going forward.
So then if I noticed that you have a line item here at various, and then it's got Eventbrite in the amount of $36,170. So my question first is I had to ask for the Eventbrite billing, and it doesn't seem to match that number. So I'm hoping you can explain. So the stuff that I got from Mr. Flora is equaling out to a different number than that 36,170. It's actually coming out to $14,285, which is a difference of $25,001. So I'm just trying to figure out, is there something else that's in that line item? Or is it just Eventbrite ticket sales?
That's everything that's gone through Eventbrite. Everything that goes through Eventbrite has been getting coded to the field house. So that's why you see the refunds and like the Battle promoter.
Right.
So Battle is a youth football group. They'll come in and they'll rent the facility and pay us. And also, we also charge $1 per person to enter. So that $893 is the $10 gate, basically, that's coming from the online tickets. So, and that's kind of where we were, falling behind last year. That's why we created these other revenue codes. So right now, this will be the last month that we just have the 2. We started implementing. There's going to be about 6. So it'll be a lot easier to understand where things are getting allotted to. And then Ronnie and I are going to work on July, August, and September. So those also match up with what we're doing.
I'm just concerned because when it says Eventbrite labeled like that, then with a big number like that, 36,000, which is a huge number for your revenue stream, and I pull the supporting documents to back that, they're not matching. So if there's something else that's in that line item, I think that I'm not seeing it, unless it's these football games that you're referring to in the revenue stream. Is that in that line item as well? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, every ticket, like any ticket.
Everything that goes through Eventbrite.
But wouldn't that be on here then with the Eventbrite September billing?
If it's not on September, it'll be on October.
But it's in your September numbers.
So things might not be paid out yet, and that, even though it's September numbers, it might not be paid out until October. It'll show next month.
Okay, because it just concerns me that we're going to run into the same dilemma if they're not actual numbers. You know what I'm, like, across the board. I would just say watch out for them. That's just something that I'm noticing.
We're working on also basically point of sale. So before we were getting all this stuff from the schools, and it was going into the field house and then coming out. Now, starting this month, it will go to the schools directly and not through our revenue for the field house. So it'll go right to the schools. So you'll be seeing those paired out a lot better in the months to come. But to summarize that's everything that's gone through Eventbrite, all the ticket sales from schools as well as all the online sales for all of our youth football groups and rental groups that use that system. And we want them to use that system because it makes it easier at ticketing. So it just does take a little bit of time to catch up from the accounting side of it.
Okay.
Like Eventbrite does a weekly and a monthly summary and stuff, so that it's just swooping everything over and then getting it in the right place.
Okay.
Like out of that 36,000 already, we know that $9,000 is coming off the total because of the payout to the youth group, and that was a room rental refund.
Question, how much does Eventbrite take percentage-wise? Do they take percentage of gross receipts that come through the door? How does that work? Or is it monthly, or how does that?
So actually, the way our agreement with Eventbrite is that their charges go on to the customer. So whoever using it, they tack on I think it's usually ends up to be about $1.50 for service charge.
For each person?
So if you did a $10 ticket, it'd be $11.50 for actual.
Well, how does it, that's if they use their debit card or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if they just pay cash, how does that work then?
If they pay cash at the door, it doesn't go through Eventbrite.
Okay.
So do you have a line item for just your at the door, your cash tickets?
No.
Yeah. Where is that money showing up on this report?
It will show up as P. It doesn't right now.
It will show up as what?
1990 currently.
The 1990.
Yeah.
Is there any pushback from the public coming in and having a $10 ticket and it's $11.50? Any pushback at all from them?
No, it's pretty standard. At Ticketmaster, you're going to pay way more.
Yeah, you also go into some
People like
big
standing
event
in
and
line.
you spend $80 on a ticket to go to some big thing in Las Vegas. You know, $10 on a football game, it's $11.50.
They don't have to pre-buy the tickets, they like pre-buying a ticket. I like pre-buying a ticket than just walking in the door.
So for a high school game, Dr. Cardone, it's online, it's $3 per student and $5 per adult. So the service charge,
Let me
and
ask
then
you,
at the door, it's $5 a student and $10 per adult.
how hard would it be for us to do that?
To do what?
To take events by price place? I mean, you can set up an account with Visa that people can pay and do the same thing. It may take some doing, but
I think
it
Eventbrite,
might capture some of that money.
Eventbrite tracks more than just the receipts coming through the door. They track the seating, assigning seating, correct? So
Yeah,
they're-
the seating, setting up the seating alone would take a long, it would take IT guys a long
Well,
time to
and
build
Visa
that.
charges the client, where Eventbrite charges the customer. We don't want to pay the fee.
Well, we charge the person that, you know, if you came in and put it in the Visa, you can do it right there, or just charge $1 if you want, so it's not that hard to do.
But you still have to pay when you use Visa. When someone that pays me at my office with Visa, I pay a 3% fee or whatever it
Yeah,
is,
but
whatever
my
my
point
merchant
is you
fee
can put
is.
that right into the charge, where they want to spend $10, okay, we have to pay Visa, but we can alter the, you know, the concession price.
But right now, we don't pay anything. And they
You
do all the
could at one
seating.
point, yeah, I
I know,
know,
but
well, we're not
Visa
getting any
doesn't-
of that either, that's
But
the whole
Visa
point.
doesn't do any of our seating or anything. I mean,
So
we're
that's-
getting
well,
something out of it.
I mean, like I said, I'm just trying to work out some of the issues to capture a little bit more of that money that's coming in here that, you know, because we're teetering on not doing so good. This is a way you can help that out a little bit. How much are we paying them? How much are they taking in per year roughly? I mean, I'm trying to hold the exact amount of that, but how much?
I'd have to look at it, when it's very minimal, it's, like I said, $1, $1.50 a ticket. It's percentage based plus, I think, 25 cents or 50 cents. I think to dig through the contract. But they also, they're also a sponsor, by, you know, using that system, they give us $25,000. So we want to keep that.
Was that a one-time thing or was that every year?
That was a 3-year agreement.
Okay, so it's not forever.
So just maybe.
And there's other platforms out there. I've used several throughout my career. I just know Ticketmaster, there's a huge, you know, and to do a high school game, they're going to be closer to $14, $15 a ticket. Their overhead is huge.
So maybe just for future, when you supply this, and you have a big ticket line item like that, if you can supply the supporting receipts, like we got from Mr. Flora this week for Eventbrite, because it makes it, even though I'm still completely lost at how there's a $25,000 difference between two.
I think a better approach would be to ask specific questions, because what you consider large and what Ed considers large coming through could be totally different.
You don't think $36,000 is a large amount on his line item?
Carol, just to remind you, so they're adding, there's 21 digits in the uniform code, so that you can add, so we're going to be adding, did you say 9?
There's going to be 6 revenue.
6 new revenue lines. And so I think that will provide some additional breakout, because those additional revenue lines will offer greater detail. And then we can always alter Ed's report however the board would like.
I'm just saying it's misleading when you say Eventbrite, $36,000 in revenue. As his revenue line, I have no supporting documents to go over it. Then I have to use one of my emails that are monitored and counted to ask you to supply me with the information so that I can match them up. And when I get that information, they're not matching up by $25,000 difference. So I'm just asking for a little bit of supported documentation to make sure that what I'm looking at and approving is valid. That's it.
I think most of those were games, if I recall, building running report. I mean, there might be others.
I don't know what you have, so it's hard for me to say. I don't
She,
know what was
what
given.
I asked,
Other than what I gave to you.
so Jolene sent me September's Eventbrite receipts. So their billing and what totaled out for each tournament that you had for September to add to that Eventbrite line item. So that's where I added each event, which I assumed would be that line item, Eventbrite, because it's labeled Eventbrite, and they're not equaling out. So that's just my question is, if they're not equaling out by that big of a difference, then supporting documentation, I don't think is a far cry to ask for.
Yeah, exactly.
I said,
Well, I think-
all the supporting documentation for the
Thank
line,
you.
they are welcome to.
I
wrote that
appreciate
down,
that.
additional support docs in
I-
detail, like
I
I
would
provided
think-
for you, and just let us know what you need.
No, you get.
I love letting you know because
Right.
right now you're not going to hold it against me, whereas if I
Right.
email you, you'll count them.
So I would
I'm
think-
letting you know and open
I
the
would think,
Yeah.
like it's something like from Eventbrite, like a monthly thing. So maybe we could just get that
As
so
a
it's all
backup on that.
separated, so we can see. Because I would imagine it's not always up to date. Do you know what I mean? It might be some from August. I would imagine if that doesn't add up, it's some of the August Eventbrite is in the September report, and so that's why it's not.
But it shouldn't be.
Well, no,
Well,
it would
no.
be, because if revenue
Okay,
doesn't.
let's take this
I mean,
one at a time.
It would be.
Ms.
It
Ferry,
would be,
one thing
because
you
of
need
when- It's a cash accrual accounting system,
Yes.
so it's when the money comes in, that's how it works. That's how it works.
So when it
So it's
comes
hard
to accounting systems, and this is something that is difficult as a board when we're looking at a cash accounting system. By definition, a cash accounting system is you don't track the money into your system until the expense is paid, not
Some of the
incurred,
August events
paid.
could be in that September paper.
Correct, and that's why the numbers may not line up month to month, because revenue came in, but expenses have not been expensed. So you may have a difference depending on how those things come out. And if a revenue comes in this month, but the expense doesn't hit until the following month, it's harder to track dollar for dollar unless you have a complete picture. So it's unfair to claim that the accounting system is misleading. I think it's more of a lack of understanding of the process that can, with all the data, will get you there.
Which I think is hard for everybody when you come to this table to get it. It takes a long time to get.
Well, I think she's just asking for more information.
Which is fine, and
That's
my
all
only,
she's asking for.
and my clarity
I don't
was
think
a
you have
large
to accept her
amount.
by saying you come to the table and you don't know what you're doing. That's not what's going on, Lori. So I don't think you can say that.
She wants more information.
So let's provide her
Okay.
the information.
Let's say one at a time.
Not talking. Let's provide her the information she wants.
And all I asked was for clarity of what a large amount is. Because to everybody, and when you're dealing with a $1.5 million budget, large, when it's, they know why, you may not know why, but they know why, may be justifiable. And so to clarify that rather than say everything that's large should be clarified, that's, I think, an
I want to
unfair
count for every
request.
penny. How about that? That's, I think you do too. Every penny you want to count.
Well, I
I'll
think
agree.
the Eventbrite, I just think that Eventbrite report would be helpful.
So I think it's a good idea. I think it's very good.
I think every penny should be accounted for and is being accounted for. And if you have questions about those, let's get those specific ones settled.
That was my specific one for this one.
Good. Well, we were asking about that because we were told everything was in the black, we found out it was in the red. So that's why some of these questions are being prompted. It's not like we're just,
And I have no
just
problem.
pulling that out of the sky and throwing it down here. There's a reason behind it.
Okay. And then, like I said, I just asked for specificity in those questions is all.
And do you like the way I've been doing the revenue? Because that's really where the issue was, so. And that's why I've been keeping the past ones too, because I've never used a revenue system that takes money out of revenue. It's always
I think
revenue
it's
expense.
very
So it's
clean,
very-
easy to understand. Your
Yeah.
boxes are very well done when it comes to just a breakout of sponsorship, vending, concessions, gates, and room rental. So there I don't have an issue, and it's very easy for me to go through and see where the money's going, where you're pulling your profit, your revenue sharing from. So I can appreciate that. whereas we got there by asking questions.
So let me ask you, and I don't know what you said the number 25,000, whatever
Yeah.
that is. If you add the 225 and the 8893, are you close to that 36?
So I just took your line item, that was 36,170. And then on your Eventbrite, you have two different totals. So you have a total face value that they give you for each event. That totaled $14,285. So that gives me a difference of $25,001. And then you also have an amount owed, that's before their fees come out. So that I totaled both of them up because I didn't know what line item you're using from Eventbrite as your total. So I just did the math on both. But they're both just a little off, and that's why it just concerns me when I wasn't seeing them equal out. So I can understand if there's revenue that hasn't been brought in yet for September, or that it's not showing on here. But
the revenue is in, it's probably the expense, or the 50/50 cut that hasn't posted yet, which will post next month.
which is your revenue share, is what you're telling me. Okay.
But in the future, that's going to go out before it gets to the field house.
That's what we're working on as of this month.
And then there's also going to be more codes that's more specific. That'll be great.
So you don't have the two generic revenue
Right.
codes that nobody knows what, and we work pretty hard to identify what our revenue sources are. So you know that comes from concessions, you know that comes from sponsors, you know that comes from field rentals, meeting rentals, and so forth and so on. But the confusing part, and trust me, I've worked through this now for the year, is the revenue coming out of the revenue, and that's what we have to do that for the state, right? You know,
I asked Auditor General, if we're collecting revenue on behalf of another entity that's having the event, when we cut them their check, it has to reduce our revenue because it never really was our revenue. And that's straight from the Auditor General, that's how we have to do it. So it is awkward because we don't get an expense for that. We actually reduce the revenue because it never really was our revenue, even though we were collecting it on their behalf. We get our piece of it.
Has there ever been a CPA that came in here that sat down with us before this field house started and like went through like pros and cons of doing it this way or that way and set things up, or no?
We're getting ready to have our audit.
No, I didn't ask that. Like
No.
a CPA consultant that came in here that would sit down with us, get spreadsheets ready, plan for, these foreseeable problems, and give us some kind of instruction.
No, it did not happen.
Error.
Not necessarily.
Oh, yes, come on.
Dr. Ricardo.
This way, you made a $100,000 error, so it is an error.
No, to suggest we pay an outside firm CPA after the fact. I mean, we could have.
Well,
but don't call it
it'd be better before the fact.
It was in your judgment as
You
well
couldn't do it.
that could have been suggested that. This all happened under your umbrella also.
No.
So
No.
you weren't here when the
When
last
the
2 years.
plant opened, sure.
Yeah. That was within your ability to initiate over the last 2 years you've been on the board, if you saw it as a.
Yeah, at a 4-to-1 constantly. No, I wasn't, so.
Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
So you suggested that to the board?
I'm suggesting it now.
Okay, but you
Because
haven't.
here's the thing,
but
I
you-
trusted
but
people like
you haven't
Ronnie,
over the last
I
2
trusted
years
Ronnie
suggested
Hart,
this.
and she proved to not do us right here. She told us we were in the black by 100,000, we were in the red by 100,000. So we need a CPA to come in here and figure this out, because Ed is the executive of this building, he is not a CPA.
Yeah, Mr. Flora.
May I have the floor, please?
Yes.
We undergo an annual audit. If you would like a CPA to come in, I imagine they make $400 or $500 an hour. We can have them come in and educate the board on accounting concepts and principles, verify that Mrs. Hart is doing a impeccable job.
Well, that's not true, that's not a That's a ridiculous
Dr.
statement.
Ricardo, you don't get to interrupt whenever you wish.
Ridiculous
ma'am.
statement.
May I please finish? And so if the board would like to, at considerable expense, be educated by an outside CPA firm to do exactly what our auditor is going to do, which they do with every school district every year. That's completely up to the board. Secondly, we already have and are paying for another audit due to our procurement findings under the previous administration, which is costing us a lot of money. So
Whose fault was that?
I just said, under the previous administration, procurement wasn't handled properly, so we are now undergoing a second audit for 3 years. So we not only have our regular annual audit, we have a second audit, and if the board, it's not an agenda item for tonight, but if the board would like to have CPA lessons in accounting, we will.
I don't want a lesson. I want Ed to have a lesson. I want Ronnie to have a lesson. I don't need a lesson. I'm not going to be sitting there putting these numbers in.
Can I speak? I just don't think that it's fair to you to sit up here, Mr. Flora, and use the words educate the board at the expense of, nope, I'm talking now, right? So for you to continuously, month after month, sit up there arrogantly, smirking, smiling back, no,
No,
why did I say? You two sit over there.
Stop, stop. You can be polite in your speech.
But
Just
he
being
doesn't
honest.
need to be polite. He's going to say educate the board at the expense of the district. These are things that need to be looked into.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
We will
But him
gladly-
smirking over there is unacceptable.
Exactly.
Unacceptable. And the fact that you condone it is unacceptable as well.
Exactly.
We will agendize this item for the future,
Sounds great.
and based on the information our superintendent has just provided, that will come at a cost.
I
to the
heard him
district.
loud and clear.
Okay, we can love the agendize it for the future, if that's what you guys wish. Ms. Crampton.
Go ahead and do
Could
that
I
in
ask that we
January.
just stop publicly speaking poorly of employees? I would like to ask that of this board.
But he doesn't have to speak.
Ms. Spearing.
I just ask that we stop publicly, as a board, speaking poorly of people who work for us. It is not a good practice, or it's not a good example as representatives of youth or as leadership. If we could just stop speaking poorly, publicly of people who work for us. That's all I'm asking.
I'd like to apologize. I thought that the board wanted to get instruction from a CPA. I'm writing this down, future topic for training for my staff to have an accountant come in and with a CPA. My apologies.
Next, unless there's any further discussion on Mr. Optimal's topic. Chartwell's.
I just had a question about the lunches that are made. Are they made at both high schools? How many are being made? And especially the lunches that go home over the weekend, how does that work?
So I don't have a representative from Chartwell's here, but in their report, they do list the number of breakfast and lunches served. I do know that thanks to the USDA extending the program, we're able to get those numbers up. Those are critical. I can get back to you with more detail on exactly what is included and what the answer to that question would be. The opportunity for us to give any and all students, and this is not just Mojave and River Valley students, but any students, the opportunity to get a free breakfast and free lunch comes from the USDA and that extension of the summer food program, and that's due to COVID.
So that was only for COVID, it wasn't before this at all?
No, and they extended it because, people who are stuck at home where they can't get out, there were transportation issues, pickup issues, a whole host of communication concerns that the Department of Agriculture felt needed to extend the program, and we're really happy that they did. And they first extended it to the end of the summer, then they extended it to the middle of the fall, then to December 31st, and now they're doing it all the way through June 20th.
And they do it Monday through Friday, or how does that work? Just, and I know they do it on some weekends, correct?
We're giving out weekend meals on Thursdays for the weekend. So that's the nice flexibility feature that the USDA has provided us. And all schools, it's not just us, it's completely across the entire nation. Every single school has now this massive, and that came out of the CARES Act. I would imagine the USDA is getting a lot of funding to feed all of these children across America.
That's the only question I have. Now,
So we have a contract with ABM, and that contract includes, and I don't have all the details of the contract in front of me, there is a facility cleaning aspect to it, there is a upkeep and maintenance, there's landscaping and grounds aspects of the contract as well. I will tell you that and this is a positive, Ronnie and I met with the ABM, and we are looking to cut into the $1.6 million contract that we have with ABM. This goes back to a question that Mrs. Fearing had asked me about where would I look for cuts. And unlike when I do say I may have to cut staff, that's the last thing. That's the part that never gets repeated is, that's the last thing I would ever want to do is cut staff. I would look to other areas. And ABM is already aware of my request for cuts to the contract. And that would be a conversation, I think, for a future date, because I need to iron out the details of that and get us to a better place. I think we could do better than 1.6 million, for sure.
Well, like, for instance, let me ask you a question. We pay them a landscape maintenance fee that's included in that price, correct? Now, what happens if a tree comes down? Do we have to pay them extra? Is that included in that?
We do pay overtime if it's over and above their normal contracted hours.
Right. So that's the things that we want to talk to them about, because overtime, and let me also add this is really critical. We have a 50-year-old facility, and in the next 5 to 10 years, and this is where I'm disappointed in the state of Arizona and with the SFP, and we had this conversation earlier in the previous months. We don't have the opportunity to create a capital reserve. So in a 50-year-old facility, when things start to go, like air conditioners and roofs, and even this facility here, it's brand new spanking new, but over time, it will age and it will wear. And that will then be additional maintenance costs and overtime, and materials and labor, et cetera. And we would like to reduce those, stay ahead of those, plan for those, but at the same time, cutting those costs down to reasonable amounts. Not unlike bringing on a full-time HVAC person, as opposed to paying a la carte, those types of things. And I've been in contact and in discussion with ABM. I don't have anything final yet, but I will have something for the board hopefully before the end of the year. And I did check with the attorney as far as breaking the contract, and we can break it anytime we want. And that was critical, because I can't just jump in mid-year and start, playing around with a contract without having the legal authority to do so. And so, as far as the ABM project report, these are ongoing projects. They're painting things, they're fixing up the campus. Work orders are put in by staff and principals and administrators. We have sidewalks that need repair. Both campuses are literally in a chronic state of repair. It's just, you guys know from owning your own home, right? There's always a light bulb out somewhere. And that's kind of, what I'm hoping to get ahead on. And we're in the middle of an electrical assessment, as you can see. That is going to help us considerably when it comes to SSD requests. Because, they don't want to invest in a brand new air conditioner if our electrical impulses are going to blow it. Or, what was it, ARC? Did you have an ARC in your?
Well, who would pay for that air conditioner? We'd have to pay for it anyway, right?
Well, that if it's under warranty, and then also what happens as it ages is the trust becomes involved in the repair. But, as it ages to a certain point, then it becomes 100% R. Again, it's no different. I always try to equate it to your own water heater or your own air conditioner, right? If it's brand new spanking new, it's under warranty, you're probably good. If you buy an extended one, but there comes a point where it doesn't pay to do that, and you maintain it yourself or you replace it. Our requests go to the SFB in hopes that they'll replace it, and we get a brand new spanking new one. The funny thing is, by the time you get a brand new spanking new one over here, this one's really old, right? And as you go down the line, you're never really with a full new set of equipment. Your equipment's always aging and always being aged out.
Are all the contractors licensed contractors for what they're doing? If, like, say it's plumbing, or is it just like OJT kind of a guy, and that person just called in.
No, they use their own staff up to the point where they don't believe they can handle the job, and then we go out and we get.
But are they licensed people?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Now, another thing is when those ABM people are getting trained, do we pay for their training?
No.
Or no?
They're employees of ABM, not us. We don't pay them, we don't cover their salary, benefits, training. All of that's done by ABM.
And how long have they been with us in the district?
I've only been here 18 or 17 months. How long have
This is
you?
their second contract.
For how many years?
How long that?
So the first one was 5, and we are in the middle of the second
Third year, I think.
contract. So it sounds like 8 years. Sounds like 5 plus 3.
And where are they located?
I know the regional manager that I deal with is out of Idaho. I think their main base is in Texas. I want to say Texas, but don't hold me to that. I'm guessing. I don't know. But the regional manager that I deal with is located in Idaho. And he comes down periodically, maybe every other month, but we speak on the phone every month. And if I have issues with any of his staff or concerns, I go right to him. And then we have a meeting with our campus leadership.
Can I just say something? When you say that when Ms. Fearing asked you where the cut's going to happen, that needs to be brought into context because this is an open meeting and the public heard you say that. So just so that we're very clear, I asked you after our August meeting when you and Ms. Crampton brought up cuts multiple times when we agreed to the LOC. And I said, why are you mentioning cuts when we have a sign that says hiring for all staff? And you said to me, oh, well, cuts could be a multitude of things, right?
Correct.
So I didn't ask about cuts, so that we're clear. So your statement that you just made was misleading. So I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that's how that transpired. Was I asked, why are you bringing up cuts when there's a sign that says hiring all positions?
I'm sorry for misleading you
Thank
when I
you.
spoke.
I heard you said cuts multiple times.
And I
said it one
apologize
time.
for-
When I didn't mean staff cuts, I meant budget cuts. So
I apologize
we
for,
have to be clear about
I'm going to say
everything.
this clearly.
We do have to be clear about everything.
No, I'm apologizing clearly. I am sorry for misspeaking when I spoke before.
I wonder.
One conversation at a time, please. Anything else?
No, I'm done.
Yeah, I did on the ABM subject. I kind of noticed myself that ABM, it feels like the budget has grown kind of on the ABM subject. So I had to ask recently on campuses about it, because I feel like, we saved a lot of money when we switched to ABM originally. It was a good move for us. It was how we were able to give teachers a raise in a crucial time, and we were able to, keep staff, and it was a really good move. But the number, seems to keep growing on what we were paying ABM, and so I kind of had some concern about that. So when I spoke about it, we have the same two leaders, that are like before that we had ABM, and then now that we have ABM, and the answers that I got back were still that they feel like our campuses are better than they've been, in better shape than they've ever been, and they didn't want to go back to having to be, and I didn't send the question out to that I was like wanting to not have ABM or something. I was just questioning about it because I just am concerned about that number myself and feeling like maybe that we're billing is,
So that's why
as being, I don't know, is too readily accepted maybe or something. Maybe we can work on that. But they were both not wanting to go back to having to be, how is it? How's the wording? Not wanting to go back to being building that they're school administrators, and they going back to being a building maintenance director, so it's not their calling and their specialty, so they like having the, you know, the campuses ran, you know, that way, so that was the only thing I was gonna add to this point of that ABM thing, but.
Anything else on ABM? Item 3. Sorry. Oh, yes. So we need a motion to approve those 3 items that were removed from the consent agenda.
I make a motion, we approve those items.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item 4.1, discussion of possible approval of intergovernmental agreement between CRUHSD and Mojave County Treasurer for payment of Transwestern Pipeline property tax.
So we received from the county attorney a intergovernmental agreement that is going to provide us with the opportunity to refund, if you will, or execute repayment of the overpayment of taxes for the years 2016 to 2021. This intergovernmental agreement allows us to enter into the ability to make those payments over the protracted period of time, as opposed to in one lump sum. The other part of this, which is really to be determined, as I've alluded to in my weekly update for you guys, that we're still waiting for the exact amount that we're going to owe, in the hopes that the state will correct its mistake and reduce our obligation. And therefore, we would have a much lower payment and settlement that you see in this agreement. But the way it works is we have to first agree to the payment structure and payment plan, and then any adjustment made by the state will come at a later date. So before the board for its approval is the Transwestern case intergovernmental agreement between us and Mojave County.
Mr. Floor, would you mind, just for the public, to explain why we're in this situation in the first place?
So the state evaluated the land and the taxes collected on those counties that were affected by the pipeline, and it runs from Texas all the way to California. We just happen to be one of the counties that was over-assessed. And then once the tax assessment is collected, it's then distributed to all of the entities within the county, the school district being one of them. Once we've received those payments in 16, 17, 18, 19, and here now in 20, and slated for 21, those monies have to be paid back. And so the county attorney, after the much litigation, fighting this over assessment and challenged by the pipeline, Transwestern Pipeline, they lost the legal challenge, and therefore those monies have to be returned back to Transwestern Pipeline through the municipal entities who received the overpayment of taxes. Is this clear? I know it's very convoluted, but we're just caught in the middle of one of the counties that got affected by this. But again, the good news is in the past, the state has provided and earmarked additional revenues for us to make this correction. It probably will not eradicate or eliminate the entire amount, but it should, and we hope will greatly reduce this obligation. But this specific IGA is to set up a payment plan beginning this July of 2021 and running all the way through 2024. So again, before you is the intergovernmental agreement for your approval.
Any other discussion? Okay. Motion.
Well, I make a motion that we approve the intergovernmental agreement between Mojave County and Colorado River Union High School District to repay the debt with Transwestern Pipeline.
All second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4.2, discussion and possible approval of 301 plan description.
So this is something that the board, comes to the board's attention. Prop 301 is essentially discussed and effectuated by the teaching staff and the professional staff. The only changes that I'm aware of, they did first of all approve it and must by law approve it by a vote of 70% or more, were in component number 2, items 1 and 2, providing more opportunities for them to meet their hours and goals, and making improvement adjustments in their scores on common assessments for pre and post assessments, and then a modification to Appendix E for more PD hours. This again is self-directed by the staff. They had discussions in their meetings, they voted on it, and must by law receive a 70% approval by the entire, by the instructional staff, and they did. And so for the board's approval is the Prop 301 plan for 2021.
I just want to ask, I did some research with the performance audit from 2013, and one of the major red flags was 301K. So I just want to make sure that the recommendations that they gave us were actually fulfilled and met, and we will have supporting documentation to attach with all of those criteria that were met so that we don't get flagged with another performance audit if we get one done.
Okay.
Can I speak to that real quickly? I didn't know.
Of course.
Right after that performance audit, we had to rectify everything prior to getting that signed off on. And Darlene worked and they upped the rate. One of our biggest problems was we didn't have enough rigor and all that. And that, we immediately corrected that year, and we've not had any problems since with the auditors on that.
Okay. Okay, because it just says retain supporting documentation to show that performance pay goals were actually met, and then it says establish meaningful and measurable performance goals. So it sounds like that second one definitely met. And then just when we do this 301, that we would make sure to supply all of the documents that they would request.
So when that was my first year, it was that teachers didn't have the documentation to meet the scores that the principals had gave them. So we've established a committee of teachers, and they review the plan every year, and then that committee score the plans, and there's a rubric. They go by the rubric to score the plans. They make sure everybody has a folder, and if they don't have it in there, they don't get the points. And so then we keep that for the auditors. Yeah. So we have not had a problem since then.
I move we approve the 301, Prop 301 plan.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible approval of the Colorado River Educational Technology IGA between the Bullitt City Elementary School District and Colorado River Union High School District.
So as you know, this is the fourth and final consortium agreement between us and the elementary school. The reason I had held back bringing this to the board was I had struggled finding a senior tech person for the position. And so finally, is Jared here? Yep. Jared, would you mind standing? Jared is facilities and has been elevated to our new senior tech coordinator mentorship of James McNutt. And we believe that he's not only been doing an outstanding job, but he will continue to do so. We also believe that it would be much easier for our technician, Jared, who he then mentored himself. Before you, intergovernmental agreement between us and the verified the services to include, and those were in there for your agenda for a vote. And there's only one correction we've discovered in the language in section and that is not the one that's digitally being presented here. Crushed personnel is an obvious typo. It says that the employee crushed. The high school provides that qualifier. In the paragraph to that, in 2A, it says elementary school. So the clarification just needed to be made in B2 that the responsibility of providing qualified personnel for the high school would be the responsibility of the high school.
And that's reflected on the one we have in front of us, correct?
That's the one you have in front of you, the yellow highlight on page 2, section 2B. And you can see the strikeout where it says elementary school. It was a copy from above, where the elementary school would provide their employees, and we will provide ours in section B. And that's the only change, and I had that put before you. Other than that, we have, and we'll be posting a junior tech position, and we will be moving Jared, and thank you for stepping up, Jared, and accepting that responsibility. We look forward to you serving in that role.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other thing that needs to be changed is it says Pat Young as board clerk.
Oh, it does. My bad. Thank you. I apologize. So we'll clear up the signature line. Actually, just remove his name.
We still motion and approve.
Yeah.
And pending the change that you just mentioned, Lori, I apologize for that.
I move we approve the IGA for technology as with the changes described.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4.4, discussion on the 619 project.
Well,
Thank you, 1619.
1619 budget. Well, a number of constituents came to me and were concerned when this was a little bit of a hot topic a month or two ago. And basically, it's developed by the New York Times Magazine, the 1619 project. And at its core, it portrays Americans as inherently racist. One of its tenets is that we wanted independence from Great Britain because to protect the institution. There's no reason for this. It's politically based over historical fact. And I want forward so we can have a discussion because I think we should teach facts and how to think and not care. And I think we have to talk about this so we can have clear direction on curriculum we want and we don't want taught in our school. And I just wanted input from the other board members as to how we should proceed. And I'd like President Burgess to maybe contact the attorney to find out if there's any teeth we can put into this so that, and that, of course, if the board agrees with me, that topics that are politically motivated, as I think this is, should have no place in our three high schools to be taught. I think we have to figure out how to go about this if everyone agrees with me that in general some of these things should be taught and put forth as curriculum so there can be transparency in what we deliver here as a product for our students. I think we have to talk with Ms. Brown and we have to update some of our websites as to what we offer, like say the historical reading list, the literature list per grade level, and what we will teach in our classes. I'd like, Mr. President, if you would talk to the attorney to find out if there's any teeth that we could put into this if we agree. Now, what I mean by that is I realize that teachers have a right of free speech. They can say what they want, but they don't have the right necessarily to do it when they're under an employment contract with the district. And I don't know how that really works specifically. So that's if we all agree. If you don't agree with me, then it won't move. We would want. But I think we need to have some input from the attorney before we make curriculum directives that are very directed at certain things and focused, where we don't want this taught in our district, if that's, of course, what everyone decides. So I don't know what everyone else thinks.
Do you have information on the 1619 project?
Well, the 1619 project falls under what they call critical race theory.
Right.
And so you would,
I know, you just said what it was, but I want to know if there's some literature that you brought for us.
Well, I don't have anything to put on the
Okay.
big screen, but it's pretty widely known what it's about. And that's the major tenets right there, that we're inherently racist as a country and our institutions are racist.
we should be dabbling in politically motivated teaching here, and it should be more, let's teach facts, and let's teach how to think, but not what to think. And
Critical thinking.
yeah, Mr. Floor, if you wouldn't mind, I don't know what is the policy about curriculum? Maybe our curriculum director can speak to that better, and the board's role regarding curriculum.
I'll let Mrs. Brown continue, but I'll
Yeah, we decide, right?
Well, I think what we need to do first is make this a future item for discussion and.
Well, let's talk about it first, and let's see if there's an appetite for it. We're not voting on anything, it's on.
Yeah, well, that's what I was trying to clarify. And the cycle of review for curricular by subject, Mrs. Brown.
We look at it every year, and we don't teach curriculum, we teach standards. And based on those state standards, I did speak to the social studies department on this, and they don't teach individual particular, things like this 1690. They do touch on slavery because it's in the standards, and you teach the process. We've got a couple of people here that could address that. Katie and Ms. Lipinski, but they teach standards. We review the standards every year, and the departments go over the standards and make changes to them.
So I would ask then, and if you don't mind commenting to Dr. Cardone's concern, is that sentiment being taught in school right now, that America by nature is racist, and according to the principles of 1619 espouses?
Hi, Mr. Lipinski, I teach history, both U.S. and world at Mojave High School. As I've mentioned a couple of different times, first of all, you guys can hear me through this thing?
Barely.
Great, then I'll take it down. As I mentioned to Dr. Cardone, a couple other people, when it was brought up, I want to be very frank. We don't teach the 1619 project in our high school because it's not part of the standards at all. And if I were to be teaching stuff that's outside the standards, you'd be seeing my kids getting terrible grades and we're not covering this stuff. So the 1619 project is something very specific that came out of the New York Times Magazine. It has been, by many historians, factually questioned. It is not based on historical fact whatsoever. It is based on opinion of how we as a nation ought to look backwards. It is not based on facts. We at Mojave High School, and I will speak for Mr. Kane over there, we do not teach anything other than the facts. The standards that are set by the state that might touch on some of the same issues that the 1619 project may allude to are like the Civil War or the Harlem Renaissance. That is in the standards in the state of Arizona. We do not teach that the United States as a country or as a culture is inherently racist. It doesn't happen in our school. I know the history teachers very well. We talk once a month, very specifically on PD Day, about results from different projects we do, testing, things that are going well, things that are not going well, how can we do better? The 1619 project is something that came out of that New York Times Magazine, and some districts around the country picked up on it and wanted to teach that, possibly. I didn't look too much into the entire thing, because I know what we do here in Bullhead City and at Mojave High School specifically. And in my personal opinion, this isn't an issue that we have to necessarily address to a degree, because it doesn't happen. We teach to the facts of history. If there was a teacher in our school that was leaning far to the left, let's say, and teaching that America is totally racist, they would be teaching critical race theory, and that's not history. That is college level stuff. So that's not even in the realm of our standards, which, by the way, just got redone a year or so ago from the state of Arizona, delivered to us. We reworked some stuff for ourselves, made things better. So in my personal opinion, based on what I know that happens on campus every single day and in my classroom, a lot of people made much ado about nothing, fearing that maybe some teachers would bite right into this. Those teachers don't teach here. and by all means, if the lawyer says, yeah, we need to make sure that our teachers are not doing X, Y, and Z, by all means, I can tell you it's not already happening. We're doing our jobs.
Yeah.
Don't teach opinion.
My concern is not with you.
Yeah, no, of course. I know what you're saying.
And not with anyone else. It
Right.
is the future and prevent things from happening like this where we can avoid something rather than embroil ourselves in a dispute when it's happening.
Right, no, and I totally agree, and I know where you're going from, and I would suggest that, quite honestly, if there was a teacher teaching more about their opinion in any subject matter, that's not standards. Our curriculum director, our department heads, our administrators would know about it really quick because they observe us quite often, and you know what? These kids are honest. They might know about it faster than we get told about it. So I understand the concern. I'm right there with you. It's not factual. It's questioned deeply in the circles of professional historians. And frankly, I think it got a lot of traction where it probably didn't need to, but those are for other districts to deal with. So confident in what we're doing, and I know you're talking about the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But that's my opinion, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, I don't know, what do you guys think?
I tend to err on the side of
I need to research it.
small government. And as a board, without the need of intervening, I would like to give our, to follow the standards that we understand them to be doing, and when there's a problem, then we intervene. That's where my head is.
Sometimes we don't know that. I mean, they can be teaching something in a classroom, and we don't really even understand that there's a socialist indoctrination of our students, that I am going to make sure I'll do whatever I can possibly do to vote against that at every single step of the way. And I just want to prevent that from happening. I think we should review the curriculum. We should set standards on certain areas, not like math and things like that, but certain standards we have to set as a board so that we can go forward to Ms. Brown and then she can take our directive and run with that rather than us trying to do whack-a-mole and stop these things from happening that we're hearing about and doing it, try to set some kind of standard.
No, and I get it, but if I heard correctly, that standard already exists. Ms.
The
Brown.
standards are set by the state.
Well,
And
we have some input.
They redid the social studies standards, and then we have the leeway to look at those standards and decide how it's going to be taught. But in the classrooms, I meet with Brad quite often, and we talk about what's going on, and they have their assessments that we look at.
So are you seeing within our standards any indication that this is happening?
No, and if I saw that in a classroom, in fact, kids should never know what political leanings their social studies teachers have.
Good, exactly.
Okay.
They should look at both sides, and I've never seen any teacher. We did have a teacher years ago that was let go because he was not following the standards. And so we try to keep a watch on that, and I think our teachers do an excellent job on the standards.
Oh, I agree with you totally. And like I said, it has nothing to do with anybody at all here, but it's just the concern going forward in the future.
So no, if you guys wish to make it more specific, I think we need to agendize it for a vote.
Well, I would
But
think that
currently
we need
our
to, I would
standards-
think that before that we do anything like that, I mean,
I can
I
send
feel
you
like,
copies of the
for me, I
standards.
feel like that's a little bit micromanaging in areas that's not my job, myself. That's her job, so I mean, if we want to see, I would want to see the standards and then see what's taught in those standards to see if there's a problem a problem of how those standards are being taught. Because everyone's reporting that there isn't one currently. So for me, I'm satisfied with that, but I have no problem looking at them, and we haven't reviewed it in 4 years. I have not seen the social studies standards or looked at them.
That's what I was
So
just
3
gonna say,
years,
do
maybe
we
3
review
years.
curriculum on a yearly?
We were reviewing
So I
everything
think just as a
before the
compromise
last-
to both sides, because we don't want to micromanage anybody, we want to trust that everybody's doing their
I
job.
think that's a good approach. To
Is
review
let's
the
just
curriculum and see
look
if
at
there's
curriculum,
anything
because it
appropriate.
needs to be done anyways.
Yep.
And review the standards, and if anything's strikes out at us, it can be a conversation to get ahead of something. But just because it needs to be done because it hasn't been done in so long,
And then if
let's
there's
just
a
review
way
it.
that standards taught that maybe we want to.
Yeah, we could send you the standards and the calendar that.
And I think that that's a
Basic
good
idea.
compromise.
Good, I like that.
What I could recommend would be a workshop where we could go through all of the standards.
Workshops, I'm just against that.
Okay.
We gotta talk in open meeting, it's always that stuff.
The workshop is open meeting.
Well, yeah, but it's not gonna contain that,
Okay.
I vote for a workshop just because that would
Well,
be
what I'm-
happening.
And then start at 6 o'clock, I'm
What
not
I
gonna
was trying to suggest is we could cover more curricula in a workshop. But if you want, we could
I
also
agree.
just do it in the open meeting and do 2 subjects
vote on it
in
then.
December,
Vote
2
on
in
it.
January, 2 in February. However you think would be the best to go through.
Would you guys like a workshop or a meeting?
A workshop.
Meeting.
A workshop.
We can cover a lot more ground and a lot more
That
subject
gives us
areas.
more flexibility.
I think it's easier if we do workshop, if we do cover the different, look at the different curriculum, because we haven't looked at them in a while, and I think that I would love to get back to education, so
Yeah.
let's do.
How exciting.
Yeah.
So
And so we
plan a
can-
workshop to cover some of those.
So we could do education workshops, like, look at a couple, a subject, a workshop.
Just can we stay away from January because that's our accreditation?
Yes, and we'll stay away from January. Yes.
So,
Any other discussion on
February? Workshop.
I think it's wise to have that with the new board.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have that.
You guys agree?
What?
Yes,
That
February.
conversation with the new board?
Yes.
Fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Do we know?
Anything else
No.
on item 4.4? Any other discussion? Item 4.5, discussion of possible action on 2020-2021 salaries.
So I made available to the audience and to the public and to all the board members a little salary benefit data sheet that I was unable to get into the agenda by Friday's posting. So that's why it's not before you on the screen and digitally in the agenda. But I did have Ethan, and he's doing a wonderful job on the screen because I emailed it to him. So essentially what we have is just a chart that I put together to give everybody an understanding of the raises that were, the salary increases from 2016 to 2021, the increase in the cost of benefits between 2017 and 2021. I included the actual cost of medical, dental, and vision, and Lori, I thank you for your input as well as the rest of the trust on working with us throughout the process of dealing with health benefits and the rising costs that you can see before you. I've highlighted for you in 18, 19, 19, 20, and 2021 the massive increases of health benefits. The combined cost of those benefits and the increase in the cost of our salaries. I do know that in the governor's delivery for Red that benefits were and could be included in the cost in addition to salary. And then at the bottom, I just wanted to share with you our weighted enrollment and the decline in our weighted enrollment. And the HH stands for hold harmless. Because of COVID, we're going to be hopefully held at our 100th day from last year or our 40th day from this year, whichever is greater. And then you also have listed there your base level support per pupil and the total amount of revenue that we're receiving. An increase and decrease year to year is listed at the bottom. So I just present this data to you. We've heard from the staff. We know that there is a strong interest in a desire for an increase in salary. I would make the recommendation that based on the uncertainty of revenues projected for next year, federal and state dollars, the uncertainty of the level of increase in health benefits, and my fear is that COVID-related illnesses throughout the country are going to perpetuate much larger increases in health benefits. I bias in any way whatsoever. I'm just not recommending a movement towards an increase, a sustainable increase in salary when those two things, increase health benefits as well as increase in revenues, are going to hit us hard in the next few years. And so for that reason, we see here before us over the last several years, I would not recommend a have to raise minimum wage, and I will be putting that schedule before the board in December because that by law takes effect January 1, and we don't have any individuals that are earning less than $12.15 an hour, but we're currently, our guide reads $12 an hour to maintain the minimum wage from last year. That will be raised to $12.15 and be before the board for your approval in December. But for now, this is just a data sheet for your input and decision making.
Real quick, just to get everybody in the room, and correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding of Red for Ed, the state did not give us percent revenue increases for salary. They gave us blocks of dollars. Is that correct, Mr. Flora?
Yes.
Okay. When the governor did that, did he take into account in those blocks some of the increases we've seen in minimum wage or in health care?
It was my reading of the Red for Ed said that you could, the total compensation can include both salary and benefits or fringe benefits.
No. Did he add extra above the dollar amounts to account for healthcare costs or minimum wage costs?
No.
So it was just blocks over 3 years? And did those percentage-wise increase with inflation over time, or did they stay the same?
I'm not sure if they were adjusted for inflation, but all I know is the dollars, and we recently have been, and doing well, I might add, paying down our credit line increase and trying to manage our expenses, and I'm looking to make cuts where I can with ABM and anywhere else I can. And it's really hard for me to speak of cuts when I'm increasing our payroll costs in excess of 13% for this year, 13% last year, and 22 or almost 23% the year before. So with those rising costs, and again, I think the real big question mark for me and the big concern in the aftermath of some hurricanes that I've dealt with, revenues fall off sharply. And I believe our Title 1, 2, 3, 4, our Perkins and our IDA funding is going to fall. I think our base level of support may take a hit, but I can also tell you that our enrollment is taking a hit. So revenues I anticipate will be down, and I certainly anticipate that these cost benefits will rise. And so with both of those factors, I don't think it's prudent at this point to increase our payroll by any amount other than the 15 cents in minimum wage that's state law.
I just have a question just to catch me up to speed. So the 5% Red for Ed, you projected that to come in this year, right? So wouldn't it have been in the budget for the teacher salary already? Would it really be a raise that we're bringing to the table now, or wouldn't it have been added into the budget for the fiscal year?
It's my understanding that the 10% and followed by 5% and 5% was earmarked and would be allowed to cover both salaries and benefits. And so in the years 18, 19, between salary and benefits, it was, even though last year I know we raised salaries by 5%, when you factor in benefits, it's more of like a 13% increase. And the year before that was 6%, along with benefits, which was 22%. So when you factor all this in...
One thing you need to know is that they opted to split it with classified employees.
Yes, and that was something that I heard, that there was an option to split with the classified.
So
but just in general...
It would have been 10% the first year.
But wasn't there extra money found? When I went to your guys' workshop, didn't you find extra money to put towards the classified? So it didn't actually come from the Red for Ed money, you found money in your budget. When I was in your workshop, that's what I
So last year, when we did that workshop, and I presented to the board multiple break points, right? What you're calling the extra money really was the money that the board did award to the certificated staff. And so they granted them 5%. And I don't really like giving some staff a raise and not others because I think it's a team effort. And so I went back to the board again and again to make sure that we gave and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was 30 cents, was it? 30 cents to everyone, and that was really just out of the fractional percentage above the 5% that the board did not allocate
Well,
for
and
the
that's because I
certificated
held
staff.
true to the promise we made.
Right.
And the promise we made was the first year, the teachers split. They were the ones who wanted to give part of the raise to the classified employees, but the next year, the teachers were to get the entirety of the money. So I wasn't willing to do anything other than that.
Right.
So
That's why they got the 5%.
they got the entire bit of the
But
revenue.
I guess where I'm just lost on is, it looks as though we're saying, not at this time, we don't want to give a salary increase, but really this money should have been already allocated to them.
So that, yeah, I think that's a fair question.
And
So where did
it's
the
a bad
increase
look for,
end up at
Yeah.
that was allotted from the state
Yeah.
for 2021?
I mean, I realize the healthcare benefits have gone up, but there still should have been some money that should have been allocated for.
and
But
not only
I-
that, but here's the thing is, 25.02%, who's meeting with our healthcare trust to talk about these numbers and what
Please
the
come.
projection is?
Oh, please come. I mean, all
I
the
just wish I
time.
could finish. It's exhausting. I'm wondering, where's the communication so that we could sit there and say, what are your projections for healthcare costs? And if we see an inflation of this kind, they have to have some kind of like, we see this jump. And if we see that jump, why aren't we discussing healthcare options? Or other things instead of just going with the status quo and then seeing a 25.02% increase.
So, Ms.
We don't
Fair,
go with the status
hold
quo.
on, let's,
Okay,
let's,
no,
no, no,
it's
stop,
okay,
hold
I'm
on.
just asking
Wait,
questions.
But
let's-
you're saying instead of going
let's
with
not
the status
really
quo,
respond to
we
that.
don't go with the status quo. We spent an entire year last year shopping healthcare plans. I mean, besides this meeting, I spent the last, I don't know how many years being on an entire other committee as our board representative, as our healthcare liaison, which is not a very fun job because we as a district have an extremely high claims loss ratio every year. And nobody wants us. We have our claims loss ratio was 140%. Try to get health care when that's your claims loss ratio. So our health care just keeps going up. And, you know, as an individual who has to buy health care, I mean, last year, my health claims ratio was low and my health care still went up. So, I mean, we're doing all the things, and we actually switched carriers last year because, and we have a whole team of teachers who are on this group. I mean, and we got them, they wanted something different. They wanted us to leave where we were, and they wanted something different because our normal teacher trust insurance that we're with switched from Blue Cross Blue Shield to Aetna, and they were left without a whole lot of coverage and providers and lack of service, and a lot of them couldn't go the places they wanted. It was crucial to them that they could go to the Mayo Clinic, and some of them were left with really big bills because there was no radiology coverage in our whole area. Not one person could read radiology for a whole year, I believe, wasn't it, Lance? We didn't have a single radiology coverage. And we're not going with the status quo.
Okay.
We're fighting for our employees all the time in their health care. They
That wasn't what I was trying to say.
wanted to switch to this other plan, but we can't get anything cheaper. Gary,
And it wasn't an
based,
attack, it
and
was
it's
just
based
an
on
observation.
our own claims. It's all based on our own claims. And we have a number of people who are ill, and that raises our claims ratio, and we're kind of stuck in this.
I wasn't
Hardly anyone
trying
wanted
to
us.
defend or trying to say as though the board didn't do, I was just asking for my own knowledge as being a board member, not going through this process before, what that looked like. You explained it perfectly, so that's fine, but I am still interested in knowing why that wasn't allocated into the budget as far as that 5%, because we knew it was coming. So,
Well,
And a lot of it went to benefits, to be honest.
yeah, well, because the year before, we didn't expect it. Our claims loss ratio was so much better, we did not expect it to go up. It should have, and that's part of the reason we also left them, because we actually had a good year, and we were not expecting to have that rise, and it still went up.
Hey, just real quick, the difference between $98.91, which was the premium we paid for every employee last year, went to $11,259, which is an increase of $1,368 for 150 employees, is almost $200,000 just from last year to this year. If I do the math for the previous year, I guess I'm trying to answer the question of where does the money go. One of the things I've been saying to a lot of people, and I think you all know this in the room to be true, if not one employee goes to the doctor, and not one employee picks up a prescription or even asks for a Band-Aid, our rates are going up every year. And then as Lori mentioned, when we do have a high, what they call experience rate, our experience rate then elevates that even higher. We have had many workshops with the staff to tell them, don't go to the emergency room for a Band-Aid, use Metadoc, and we're trying to do everything we can to cut the cost, but I swear to you, these insurance companies, it's just going to go up no matter what, even if we have no claims. But I'm fearful that they're going to pass on COVID-related expenses, and those of you that are in the medical profession can certainly agree, that they're going to pass on those costs to everyone. So that's my fear. I fear that it's going to be higher than 13%. I think it might be more in the area of 18 or 19%. And that's just going to be another $200,000 that we have to budget for next year without even talking about a raise. I would like the opportunity to find other cost-cutting measures and return to the board with a fair recommendation for a salary increase for all staff, because I think everyone is, at least in my tenure here, doing a great job, and I need to look at that and find monies to make that happen. But I do not recommend that we do it at this point in time. We're just getting down the credit line that we had an issue with, and we're in the black. And that's a good thing.
Mr. Flora, the only thing about that is that Red for Ed was specific for teachers. And so we have given all staff a raise each time. And so all staff has gotten the health care benefits, and that benefit has gone to all staff. And the minimum wage has gone up substantially, and so, you know, that has affected us, and that has gone to a number of staff. So I just feel like we haven't kept the obligation on this last percentage. It feels to me like we have an obligation that we haven't fulfilled. Even though I know that a lot of that has gone to healthcare, I feel like there still needs to be some money there still needs to be some percentage that goes towards salary in that. Even though maybe it can't be the entire 5%, it needs to be something. Even though I know it seems like it's not fine, I mean, it just...
Real quick, I'd like to add, if there's money, then yeah, I would like to. I get where you're coming from at trying to predict expenses and then obligating us, because this is not just a one-year payout. It would be all future years as well. And the way to offset that would be to decrease the number of teachers we have. With decreased enrollment, you have some flexibility there. The downside is also that, do we look at increasing classroom size to compensate? That's one way to do it as well. That's a hard sell when
you're looking at COVID.
Well, not just that, is best education usually comes from smaller class sizes, not larger.
Yeah.
And so, honestly, if there is money there, I think it's valuable. And I think, for history's sake, financially speaking, for the last 12 years, the district financially has been extremely well managed. We gave raises to teachers when nobody in the whole country was giving raises.
True.
We gave, look at 16, 17, 6% then. And even during the middle of the recession, we were giving raises then too, when nobody else was, because we knew how hard it was. So if there's money there, that's great. But the bottom line is, the state didn't give us money for salary. They just gave us money. And so if we, as a benefit we've provided to our teachers and our staff, is to cover their health care costs at 100%. That's something the district does. We can elect to change that if we wish when those dollars don't balance. There's lots of ways to balance those dollars, and I hope there's ways to cut it. But before this red thread percent was discussed, we were already discussing we're going to have to take some serious looks at our budget in order to balance the expenses we have versus the revenue coming in. So there's, even before we discussed this red thread topic came into play. But I would like to give them the raises. We, I think, as a board, have to be conscious of the long-term obligation associated with that. And then weigh, I think what would be most valuable is weigh a priority list and create a priority list for if there are cuts to be made. That's what we did back in during the recession, was we said, okay, if we need to cut, what order by which do we begin to cut? And then we can prioritize those, and that gives the staff the opportunity to say, okay, to generate this revenue for these raises, whether it's ABM or Chartwell's or sports, at what point do we cut in order to make these things match up? And the other question I think is worth asking in this process too is, where are we sitting in relation to the other districts in our community and the other districts within the state? I think those are fair questions that we need to bring to the table because, like I said, we've given raises in years where many districts gave nothing. For like 4 or 5 years, they were on pay freezes that our district was able to get some of that revenue.
Yes, but if everybody has been doing their, red for ed, and then, we aren't here in this last segment, then we're not going to be equitable with other people. I mean, the whole point was to raise up the salaries.
Yes.
Well, other districts are having a contributory, right? They contribute to their benefits. That's something that has to be considered in the analysis. I think, I don't know if you want to.
Dr. Cardo.
Is there any way we could put on for next meeting, we have a complete disclosure of the red money, where it went, how much we got, where it went, percentages everywhere, whether it all went to their healthcare benefits, whether it didn't, and we see exactly what happened. And we can give you time to look into that if we don't put you on the spot here.
We can tell you
We
right
go
now.
exactly through it so we can have a clear direction of what's happening, and then we can make a decision based on factual data rather than,
Well, this is factual data.
No.
I look at the.
I talked about the red
data.
5%.
Because there was an increase given to us allotted by the state that wasn't part of our normal ADM, right? Is that what you guys were referring to? Is where did those dollars go specifically?
Even I'm like, why wasn't?
Are you understanding the question? Is that easy to gather for next month? Okay. No, I'm saying easy.
No, we're just asking about our base case.
Okay. I think it's a good question.
You want to let me?
Yes, Mr.
All right. So I'd really like to back up here because there were some questions that were not answered. And myself as a staff member now for 6 years, and part of this agreement that some of us were talking about a couple years back, I was standing right here, and we did talk about the first year and then the second year. And there are several teachers over here that were also involved with that. So let's cut back to the very beginning. First, regarding the insurance, 100%, our insurance has been inflated, and it's going up and up and up. Okay, we need to sever that mentality away from the 5% right here, right now. And here's why
we can't, because
but let me ask you,
from day one.
Let me edify some of the folks that need.
Hold on a second, I'm going to stop. Because from day one, and you can go back. Well, I will, but I don't want to separate it. From day one,
I know you don't want to, but there's some facts that you don't have.
Okay, so let me finish. I'm saying then you can go right back to what you're saying.
I was going to give you some
Because
information.
guess what? We get to have the board. We have the benefits were always part of the discussion. We hope to not have to include them. And I think we've done a pretty good job up to now at not including them in the salary and just eating that from the position of the district. So I don't want you to make it sound like that was never a conversation.
Make it sound like. So I was actually going too crazy.
Good,
I
thank
was
you.
going too crazy, but if you would have let me finish, Dr. Burgess, I was
Now,
going too crazy.
please go ahead.
Okay, so now, we all, including those of us that have had that discussion in the last couple of years, we agreed, we had a discussion, and we talked about it, where the original 10% was going to go to. 6% went to raises, the other 4% went to payroll benefits. That's where it went, okay? Some to insurance, part of that went to retirement and all the other payroll benefits. That first year, okay, we talked about it, and we all, and I wanted Ronnie and all classifieds like we talked about to get some. So the second year rolls around, and it went to, some percentage went to salary, other percentage did go to benefits, and healthcare included. And we all know that. Everybody in the teachers, that's in our district and around the state know that that is partially where some of that money can go to. Nobody is blind to that.
But they still got 5%.
Correct, you're right.
Okay.
So my issue is, and my question is, this year, did CRUHSD get the dollars for Redford Ed yet?
That's what Dr. Cardone just asked.
Base level support. It comes in and forms part of our base level support.
Okay, so we already got those
I don't
dollars.
have the formula in front of me, but we don't get dollar for dollar for
Right.
the raises. Someone makes 10,000, someone makes 50,000. The state's giving us a percentage based on our base level support,
Right.
not the actual dollar for dollar that the raises are.
Right. So other districts around the state have already received their dollars. So my quick question is, where did our dollars go? Because it then leads to, if it went to all healthcare, which is what the possibility that I'm hearing possibly the alluded that it is, and it went to all healthcare, we didn't know about that. And so coming back to what Ms. Crampton said, is in the years past, we've had that conversation. And if that hard conversation had to happen, if the board had to say, and Mr. Fleur had to come to us and say, look, here's the info, it's jacked here, we don't have enough, and we need to offset it with all of the 5% or the dollars given, then the teachers at Mojave and River Valley and CRUHSD would have known that. And then, coming halfway through November, we wouldn't have asked the question, where did it go? Because we don't know where this last 5% went. Because it hasn't been addressed. When other districts in this state, we know exactly where they went. And when we pulled the financial analysis of this district, we found where $500,000 went. We know where the $500,000 went. And that is the business of what our association is going to do from this day forward. We are going to be a little more educated. As far as we're concerned, we want to know where it exactly went. So that if you tell us all $500,000 possibly, if that's the dollar amount that you received, if it went to healthcare, tell us, be upfront. And if it didn't, where'd the rest of it go? Because we have no idea.
Where did it go?
I have no idea.
You just said you know where it went.
We know that there's a $500,000 increase in our budget, but we don't know exactly if those were the Redford Ed dollars. A $500,000 increase into maintenance and plant operation, but are those dollars? Or were they actually spent in healthcare? So the question being, what's that?
What did you say, maintenance and what?
The maintenance and operations line. If that's the $500,000, give or take, from the Redford Ed dollars, then tell us. If it's not, then tell us.
Okay,
Well,
so
I'm
I
just
think
asking.
before we get ahead of ourselves,
Sure.
Dr. Cardone made an excellent point.
Right.
Let's gather the actual data, and then let's talk about it. Right?
Everything from the state, everything we were supposed to get, what we did get, and exactly where it went, every dollar.
Just what I want to know is what we got,
The increase from the
what
state.
went for the increase in healthcare for the teachers, and what's left.
Shouldn't we
That
know
would be what would go to
I'm
salary.
just asking. Shouldn't we know that?
Ronnie just said that she will, because it's in the
Exactly.
base, it's in the base level of support, which I have listed here, but there's a percentage of that was for Redford Ed. Let's extrapolate those numbers, and as Dr. Cardone is suggesting, and give you the full accounting, and then you can see.
We're wondering, my question, Mr. Floyd, and for everybody in the board, we're wondering why we weren't told that when it actually came in. Because the last 3 years or so, we've had this conversation. Here's the dollars. What would you like to do with it? What can we do with it? Man, insurance went up. Okay, hey guys, hard conversation. We need to put 4% of this to your benefits to help lower the cost. And we have that adult professional conversation. And the reality is that didn't happen this year. So we're wondering how did we get skipped in this decision-making process and it just go, now we're in November, the dollars, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, showed up July-ish, because that's, I'm sorry?
We get payments throughout the whole year.
Okay.
We don't get all the money up front.
So all the dollars then. We're just wondering where this thing went, because by this time in the last couple of years, we had signed an addendum because it was on top of the previous contract. We knew what was happening. It was forthcoming every single time prior to this year. And it became, okay, so, we're all teaching online in the COVID situation, and then we let it go a little bit and go, let's settle down a little bit. And now maybe it'll come out, and here's your addendum, and here's 2%, here's 3%, here's no percent because of insurance. And right now, my contract hasn't changed, I received no addendum. However, the elementary district has, they received a $500 increase, and they have the same insurance increase that we did last I asked. They weren't even provided an addendum. It actually was put into their original contract. So they didn't have to sign an addendum, and the board didn't have to, their board didn't have to sign it because it was $500 base pay salary. I'm just asking questions so that we can be all on the same page like we have been. And I will tell you, at least for me, if it comes back and it says we all have to go and it had to go to healthcare, I would have liked to know that, because the last 3 years we have had that big conversation and hard conversations about classified staff that I feel I was wrong in saying that second year they shouldn't be getting, and that's why I went back and what I said, and I do believe every classified employee should get part of that red thread. However, because they actually have interaction with teachers or with students. So again, we just want to be part of the conversation when it has to do with the 20 by 2020 concept, and it's the last year. To finish, we won't be getting any more 5%. That is done after this last 5%. It's done and over with. So those conversations, it's just this last little bit. I would like to address really quick that 208 did pass. So any dollars amount that are coming, I don't really feel in the same area of the, geez, we might have to cut, and I keep hearing about it, and I totally understand dollars in this state. But we also have to look at a little positivity, that there are a ton of teachers here that aren't going anywhere. We're going to be here. When the 208 dollars start coming in, one of the things that the only reason why I voted for that, not because I like taxing the 1%, that's a terrible idea. I like the fact that I can trust the board in making the decision what to do with the money provided to us, and not some bunch of crazies down in Maricopa that don't care about us. It's our board that will get to do that. So as we go forward, we can have these conversations again and sit down at a table and decide as it goes. But I'd really like to know if the money came in, where did it go? But that's all I'm asking.
Let me ask you a question. Do you know of any teachers that maybe had a spouse that had insurance that covered that teacher?
Many.
That didn't need insurance from our district at all?
Right.
Do you know any kind of anecdotal statements that they got money or didn't get money? How did that work?
There's only 7. There's
Wilcox.
only staff members.
Wilcox.
Just so you know,
Not me personally, but.
There's only 7 employees opt out of that.
Yeah, and I'm not all up on the decision behind that, but I can tell you there were several employees who, because of that decision, the insurance skyrocketed for them because they lost that singular benefit of doubling up for the spouse. Mr. Wilcox.
Having dual coverage versus single.
Correct. It hit several fairly hard.
Can I ask while you guys are moving, so when we take the Red for Ed money and we put it toward healthcare costs, does it make the premiums for healthcare go down? Is that why we apply the money to healthcare, is to help offset? No.
No, I understand what you're asking.
No, it doesn't. It just
There's a premium increase, and where that comes from in our budget is applied. Now, Red Fred was an increase to our overall revenue for the district. So that was an increase, and we had an increase in expenses in healthcare. Whether those equaled, I don't know the answer to that yet until we get some of that data back.
They just gave you this flexibility to use that money.
My point of asking that question was, I would expect that if somebody had other insurance that by their spouse, they didn't need our insurance, that they would see some, logically you'd think they'd see some increase in pay because it wasn't going toward their health care. That's what I would suspect.
That doesn't happen.
Well, okay.
It doesn't happen anywhere.
Well, I don't know why that necessarily wouldn't.
Well, it doesn't.
Well, because one of the reasons is the larger your insurance pool, usually the better discount you can get from an insurance
And you
provider.
have a whole bunch of people
Well,
opting to not
if
have
I-
health insurance, so they can have more money.
Well, that would be
They're
their
not
choice,
getting
though.
money, right?
You know, that would
If
be.
you opt
No,
out,
they don't get any money.
if
They
you
can
opt out,
opt
you
to
have
not
to
take the
provide,
insurance.
by federal law, if you opt out of your health benefits, you have to provide proof that you have them. And so people could go out into the secondary market and buy catastrophic insurance if they'd like. The other thing is, and I know in New Jersey, we capped the amount of money, I think that was done by the governor, as to the amount of money that you could receive if you opted out of the benefit package. But one of the other things I think that gets glossed over in this conversation is, and I will try to go out and look at more, provide more data and more research, but the overall feeling that I am seeing is that other districts are contributing to their benefits. And one of the things that I've learned in the last year, with the 5% raise that I brought to the board and the board approved, this year, same thing without a raise, increase in health costs are not something we have any control over. And that's the danger. The danger is that we're looking at something that we cannot control. And it's costly, and it's got me concerned.
I know that, but we have an obligation.
No, I know. And so we're going to go back and look at the baseline level of support. We're going to look at the percentage of that dollar amount and break out exactly so you can see where the money's gone. But I thought I extracted enough information for you to see that those costs are prohibitive, and the board has elected to take on those costs 100%. And under the law, you are allowed to compensate under Red for Ed to include both salary and benefits. So just
The other thing I would add is to teachers' benefit, if we're covering their health care, they don't pay taxes on that money.
Right, it's pre-tax.
Well, if we cut that out and they provide their own health care, now their health care costs are at after-tax dollars.
So can we
Also-
check with the elementary district about how they manage to do,
The other thing I would add that,
if they have the same increase teaching?
But they have a larger base level of support, and therefore the percentage amount would be bigger. They also got over $1 million in CARES Act funding, which could be allocated for a lot of COVID costs, and we got 460. So there's a lot of differences. You got to look at the size of the enrollment, the decline or increase in enrollment, the base level of support, and
I know, but we had this obligation prior to all that.
No, I know, I'm just saying that's, I can't answer any of these questions until I look at all of those details, but the information that I'm bringing before you is that which I am 100% certain of, and that's the scary part for me. I know Mr. Wilcox wanted to speak.
Oh, I was just going to speak on what Mr. Kinski talked about. I don't think the health insurance from the district because one, I'm a top worker, I get that benefit. Two, I'm a disabled veteran, that's another health care benefit I get. And three, I get health care through my wife's job. So having that option, whether it's that money that would go into providing me benefit here in the school district, have an option, okay, let's see if we can shift it to a pay increase for him.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That would make intuitive understanding. Exactly. So I would think that money is meant for every teacher, not just a pool of teachers. That's what I would understand. As that would mean that if you don't need health care, then there's some other benefit you should get, either monetary or some other benefit.
Dr. Cardone, I'll look into the state law regarding that to make sure that it's a feasible, because in New Jersey, I know it wasn't. Because everyone would, if you opt out, if everybody opts out, you would have a smaller risk pool and a larger premium. And then,
So, well, my question is, and I don't know the answer to this, if they give you this money for 5% increase for the teachers, is that to be used for every teacher or teachers in general?
from the state,
for guys like this, you get
the state, the school gave the discretion to the districts on how to allocate that money. The block money was given to the schools, and then the schools figured out how to allocate it.
We will do our part to allocate it appropriately. You got my word.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, up till now, it's
No, I
usually with
know,
admin,
but I mean, some of that stuff isn't done by us.
No, it was done by us.
Not
It has been
specifically,
previous.
not for his situation. It was, we didn't look into it in that detail. Right?
no, did not.
So what are we gonna do? You're gonna gather more information?
I'll get more information for you on the law relative to opting out. Also, we'll break down the base level support, the percentage relative to those earmarked for ed, and we'll apply the percentages that have been expended for both salary and benefit. And I'll do even a further breakout. I'm afraid that the numbers probably won't be optimistic, but regardless, I'll give you the detail.
I think just transparent numbers, we're just looking for the raw data so that we can make an informed decision for the benefit of these teachers. And give them what they deserve and given by the state.
Right. Exactly. Okay, sounds good. Anything else on that? Okay, future topics.
Well, I think that the two topics I wanted were the red money disclosure clarification, which we did. The other was the curriculum that we're going to put on in February. That's fine. I think the other thing is the COVID-19 transparency. We got to see what's going on there. What's the issue with that? And I think that has to be on the agenda. We can discuss that.
Yeah, a couple notes I made on that same topic were, I know that, HIPAA and FERPA both, we cannot say who the student is, and that is fine. But absolutely, a teacher has to be notified if there is a positive person in that class. And that class has to be shut down until that room is disinfected. And that is the policy. I mean, that is what we put in place. And so that's got to be happening. That classroom can't be used because that place is a wildfire. So
let's be careful. I think those are good points.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure we're not discussing the topics until they're agendized.
All right. And then, so then those classrooms, well, that's fine. But in the meantime, that needs to be happening until we discuss it next month.
And I think what Lori said is we may be able to put this on as an emergency agenda item.
Yeah, maybe we need to have an emergency meeting about it.
I think we maybe do right now because I think
We have to have a 24-hour.
No, I don't.
Oh,
I think that's
emergency.
an emergency topic that maybe we just discuss right now.
Can't do it.
Well, I disagree. I mean, this is like a healthcare crisis.
Our open public meeting law does not allow that.
Well, there's certain stipulations for emergencies. And I think
I'm not familiar with them enough at this
Well, I'm
moment
not either, but it seemed like
to
you
put that into effect immediately. So I think it's worth looking at. We've got a couple days. I mean, right now we've been pretty lucky so far from what I understand. And if I understand right, no, we can't get into it. That's not an agenda. So let's send me a time you guys want to have that discussion and we will make it happen. Okay?
So I just want to say on future topics that if we could kind of bring to our agenda the role within what information board members receive. So I feel like I've been kind of out of the loop, and I don't know if that's everybody or what it is, but this also comes back to COVID, but more than just the board as a whole. I feel like if I'm getting bombarded by teachers or anybody just with an issue that happened on campus, and I don't know firsthand as a board member that it even happened, and I have to email the superintendent about something important that we should have been in the loop of, then it catches me off guard.
Exactly.
So it puts me in a bad spot if I'm unfamiliar with information that's super important. And I feel like there needs to be some kind of discussion at a future date of how that all works. Like who do you bring into the loop of important information? So
when the board's updated on information like that?
I guess so.
Every member should be
Every
updated.
one of
time
us-
you're updated.
We got
Do you mean if you're notified of something? Or
No, I just mean if something happens on campus that's.
we should all get tech.
Exactly. No, we're not.
We gotta be careful, guys. We need to focus on
I'm
future topics,
focusing, that's
not
the future
discussing
topic
those
that I want on
topics.
there.
So, your topic is how information is communicated from the campus to the board.
Exactly,
Okay.
by
We'll have
Florida in particular,
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
that's what I want.
Okay. Got it. All right, and future meeting, December 14th, 6 p.m. We talked about, that's going to be in February on the curriculum workshop. And
Same time.
any objections to that time? You guys good? Okay.
Are we not gonna do the workshop?
It's gonna be in February, because they want
Oh, yeah.
a one-day recruitment and the new board, and February.
And the accreditation.
Yeah, that's the, yeah, okay. Motion to adjourn,
I move we adjourn.
I second that motion.
all in favor? Aye, opposed? Motion carried.
Can you guys please find everything for me? Come on.
Who has it? Or you, who has it?
Here,